currently 22nd on our leaderboard. Alex Bastecki is on Grixis Delver. Both players are 10-2. Both players battled in our Players' Championship last year. Both players are trying to get to the Players' Championship this coming year. Let's go ahead and jump into the match and see what we've got going on.
So both of these players are, super nice guys. You'll see them at a lot of Star City events. And, if you're looking to have a good horse in the race, either of these players are good ones to look to.
So both players have mulligan to 6. Tom is going to lead on a Tropical Island with a Noble Hierarch. Alex Bastecki is going to fall to 18, paying 2 life, which isn't really relevant against this Infect deck. For the most part, he can kill with regular damage, but they usually don't. And he's going to reveal a Brainstorm, a Noble Hierarch, a Gitaxian Probe of his own, and a copy of Blighted Agent.
It's always funny. We always joke around about how paying life is free against Infect, whether it's Gitaxian Probe or maybe a card like Sylvan Library or Dark Confidant. And Tom has quite a few stories about how, I just attacked with my Noble Hierarch and gave it Become Immense,
and a Berserk later, and they're dead.
Yeah, and so you do have to watch out a little bit. You can't be completely ignorant of that possibility.
So Alex is going to fall to 17 using a Misty Rainforest to fetch up an Underground Sea, and my guess is going to be a Deathrite Shaman.
So
and
again,
I guessed right.
Yeah, you are a soothsayer, my friend.
Well, years of practice.
Yeah. So we've talked about this all weekend, and this is no exception. One of the best ways to get ahead is to get ahead on mana, and both of those players are basically doing that now. Not only are they getting ahead on mana, they're also getting good views of each other's hands with these Gitaxian Probes. So we can basically rest assured that these players are going to be picking some pretty optimal lines of play for the opening turns.
So Tom is going to pay 2 life, falling to 18. He's going to cast his Gitaxian Probe. Alex Bastecki is going to have a hand of 2 Force of Will. Looks like there was a Forked Bolt, a Wasteland, and a Delver of Secrets. So that's a very, very good hand. And that Forked Bolt, I think, is going to do a lot of work since Tom did have 2 Noble Hierarchs and a Blighted Agent.
Yeah, from what we saw in the Gitaxian Probes, it looks like Alex Bastecki's hand, excuse me, is a lot better for this situation than Tom's. We'll see what Tom can do, though.
So Tom's going to lead off on a Brainstorm here. It looks like he found a copy of Invigorate, which is going to be really good at protecting his creatures from the damage that Forked Bolt's going to deal.
Despite Alex having such a good hand with the Force of Wills, the Delver, and the Forked Bolt, that's kind of like the mighty mixture of just a threat, a counter spell, and a removal spell. That's sort of the formula Alex wants to have. Tom is on the play, and that can be one of the defining factors of this matchup, is just being able to have that initiative. So Alex has the better cards at this particular moment, but Tom can make something work purely because he has the tempo advantage.
So Tom's going to resolve this Brainstorm, putting 2 cards back on top of his library. This is just one of the defining cards of Legacy. In fact, when you sit down and look at the decks that have been successful and are popular in Legacy, the majority of them play Brainstorm. There's a handful of decks, Death and Taxes, lands, that don't play the card, but it is just the defining card of Legacy.
Yeah, I don't know, though. Sometimes I feel like if you're not playing Brainstorm, you're just wrong. I'm sure that I've got people throwing tomatoes at their laptops right now while they're watching this, but I don't know. Brainstorm is one of the big reasons I even like playing Legacy.
So you're not a big fan of playing Burn?
I think it's a good deck, and I've certainly lost to it. When you're talking about EV in terms of winning the tournament, I can understand not playing Brainstorm, but I want to have a little more fun than that, and Brainstorm is just a real delight.
So Tom is going to fall to 17 using his Verdant Catacombs to find a copy of Tropical Island. This is going to shuffle away those cards that he put back on top of his deck with Brainstorm. I think we're just going to see another Noble Hierarch here, and this is going to... and a Glistener Elf. So this is going to open up some grounds for that Forked Bolt out of Alex Bastecki's hand.
And I kind of like this line of play because this allows Tom to use all of his mana, and it's going to be giving Bastecki some juicy targets for Forked Bolt and probably force him to use it. But he's keeping that Blighted Agent, which is one of his best Infect creatures, back on reserve. These Noble Hierarchs and the Blighted Elf are probably not going to be the best cards for Tom in this matchup.
So Alex Bastecki is going to fall to 15 using that Gataxian Probe. Tom's going to reveal a hand of Blighted Agent and Invigorate. And now we get to see how Alex Bastecki is going to try and navigate this game. He has a handful of cards, but Tom is starting to mount a pretty big board.
And I called Tom's Glistener Elf a Blighted Elf, so pardon me for that slight slip up before.
It's basically the same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're all the same. The Blighted Agent has unblockable, though, which is pretty sweet, because this board is likely to get clogged up. Alex doesn't have a whole lot going on right now, but that Deathrite Shaman can play a little bit of defense, and he also has cards like Young Pyromancer and Gurmag Gangler that can further clog things up.
So we're going to get a Delver of Secrets from Alex Bastecki. It doesn't look like he has a red source in his hand. He can use that Deathrite Shaman to make red mana. And he's going to do that. He's going to eat the Verdant Catacombs. Forked Bolt is going to target Glistener Elf and Noble Hierarch. He's going to keep the Invigorate in his hand. No point in trying to force Alex to use a Force of Will now. A Wasteland's going to take out a Tropical Island, and Alex is going to pass the turn back after demolishing Tom's resources.
So that was a nice 2-for-1 on Alex's part. The silver lining for Tom is that the Noble Hierarch and the Glistener Elf were not the best cards in Tom's deck, so he can sort of trade down in that regard.
So Tom's just going to play a Verdant Catacombs, cast that Blighted Agent. Alex Bastecki is going to fall to 14 using his Force of Will, pitching a Force of Will, and he's going to go ahead and attack with that with the Delver of Secrets.
And this might be a Dryad Arbor jumping out to block.
That's what it looks like.
Not 100% sure when this fetch land is happening, and it is, so that's pretty cool.
Tom is going to fall to 16, getting a Dryad Arbor to block that Delver of Secrets. Alex is going to play another Delver of Secrets, going to play his Underground Sea. He's going to be Hellbent. Tom still has that Invigorate in his hand, so all he needs to find at this point is, you know, something like a land, a Become Immense, and a Berserk, and that Noble Hierarch could just win the game.
Yeah, while that's true, this is basically going exactly how the Grixis deck wants things to play out. Alex has successfully done a lot of trading, and now each of them are essentially stripped down to just 4 cards. Now, Alex hasn't been able to eke out any extra value by having a source of card advantage, but Alex's cards are individually stronger than Tom's. So if we're in a game state where each player is limited to just 4 cards, Alex is going to be favored in that scenario. And before Alex's draw step, that's exactly what we see, is on each side of the table, between lands, creatures, and cards in hand, they had 4.
So Tom's just going to attack for 1 with that Noble Hierarch and the Exalted Trigger, and then play an Inkmoth Nexus on his turn. So that is a card that could win this game all by itself for Tom Ross. Alex Bastecki is going to miss on his Delver flip, which means that he likely doesn't have a removal spell to get rid of that Inkmoth Nexus, so Tom's likely to get in some infect damage next turn with that Nexus. Alex Bastecki is just going to attack for 1 with the Delver of Secrets, knocking Tom down to 14, and then pass the turn back. Tom did find a Brainstorm, which, like I've said before, that's usually step 1 to trying to win games when you're either at parity or behind.
And Tom might be able to deduce that Alex just drew a complete blank, because if Alex had drawn a Wasteland, he probably would have played it so that he could kill the Inkmoth Nexus. If Alex had drawn a threat, he probably would have played that also, but Alex chose to play nothing. And considering the fact that the Delver didn't flip and he did nothing, Tom can probably assume that Alex drew an irrelevant land. So Tom has a window here, and he has potential to capitalize on the opportunity.
So the Brainstorm looks like it's found a Noble Hierarch, a Spell Pierce, and a Gataxian Probe.
No fetch land, so he's basically locked into drawing all of these cards over the next couple turns. Without a shuffle effect, Brainstorms get a little weaker.
So he is just going to go ahead and play that Noble Hierarch and pass the turn. Alex Bastecki is going to eat another card out of Tom Ross's graveyard, knock him down to 11. Delver of Secrets is not going to flip again, as it looks like Bastecki does have 2 lands in his hand. So Tom is going to have a couple turns here to try and cobble something together.
And Tom is probably going to assume that Alex again drew nothing if Alex doesn't do anything here, because a spell would have flipped the Delver, a Wasteland would have been played, and a threat would have been played.
So Gataxian Probe is going to go ahead and let him see the 2 lands that are in Alex's hand. Also going to draw the Spell Pierce that's on the top of his deck. So here he's going to be able to get in for 3 Infect with that Inkmoth Nexus, and then still have mana available for a Spell Pierce if Alex Bastecki happens to try and cast something and walk into a Spell Pierce.
Yeah, the one thing that's going to be a little tricky is with that Deathrite Shaman of the land in hand, most of Alex's plays that could be spell pierced are, he's going to have enough mana to be able to cover that.
Well, that Daze is going to flip the Delver of Secrets, which is going to give Alex Bastecki a flying blocker. Now he knows that Tom still has this Invigorate in his hand, and he's going to be able to do 7 points of infect damage with that Invigorate. So Alex Bastecki is just dead to this Inkmoth Nexus since he attacked with the Delver of Secrets rather than leaving it back to block for a turn.
Yeah, a little surprising that Alex made that play. Looks like maybe he was trying to bluff something, which is a little awkward because if Tom was keeping track of things, he would have known all of Alex's cards.
Yeah, the 2 lands revealed from the Probe and then the Daze revealed from the Delver of Secrets. I think keeping back the Delver there to chump for a turn and then use my Deathrite Shaman to break Tom down to 3, that gives me an out to draw any burn spell to kill Tom on my next turn.
Yeah, it also wouldn't have been a pure chump because Tom would have had to use the Invigorate to keep his creature. So it would have been trading a creature for one of Tom's pump spells, which is a pretty valuable trade to make.
Yeah, so both of these players are very good at their respective decks. I just have to feel like it has to be a little misstep by Alex. Tom's able to pick up this game when I feel like he was a little disadvantaged in the first game, and hopefully Alex can rebound and try and take the next 2 games.
Yeah, maybe on the other hand, maybe Alex is just throwing caution to the wind and just wants to send Tom a message saying, I don't even care about your infect
everybody
damage.
Gets one.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you before you get me.
Everybody gets one. So let's go ahead and take a look at the player sideboards here as they move into sideboarding before game 2. Tom Ross has a copy of Krosan Grip, 1 Hydroblast, 2 Submerge, a Bajuka Bog, a Flusterstorm, a Seal of Primordium, a Necropede, a Force of Will, a Karakas, a Wasteland, a Viridian Corruptor, a Dismember, a Crop Rotation, and a Surgical Extraction. We got a lot of different cards here. What do we think Tom's going to do?
So I think the Hydroblast is going to come in. It's a great way to protect Tom's creatures from Alex's burn spells. Also a good card to beat a young Pyromancer, which has potential to get out of hand. If Tom wants, he could also bring in the Flusterstorm so that he's better equipped to fight counter wars when Tom is trying to combo off. Necropede has a little bit of usefulness in these sort of situations. There's a lot of low power and toughness creatures on Alex's side, and Alex also has a lot of removal, so bringing in another infect creature can be kind of nice. And the fact that Necropede, when it dies, it can kill something like a young Pyromancer and unflipped Delver can be valuable also. Crop Rotation, I think, is the other card that Tom Ross will be looking to bring in. It's just a card that is really good against any deck who's looking to play Wasteland against you.
On Alex Bastecki's side, we have 4 copies of Cabal Therapy, 2 Surgical Extraction, 1 Winter Orb, 1 Dismember, 1 Dread of Night, 1 Ancient Grudge, a Kolaghan's Command, spicy number there. Yeah. We got a Epiphany Needle, a Flusterstorm, and a Pyroblast. What's going on with Alex's deck?
So Alex has some pretty interesting cards. I think that he could bring in the Cabal Therapies. Usually Tom is going to look to build up a hand and then finish Alex off, and Cabal Therapy can be great for breaking that up. He could bring in Dismember as just another removal spell. One thing that's nice about Dismember is, unlike Lightning Bolt, which can be countered by pump spells, the Dismember will still have the -5/-5 effect. Dread of Night, giving everything -1/-1, could be quite effective against the Infect deck.
Dread of Night only affects white creatures.
Oh no!
You're thinking Knight of Souls Betrayal.
I am thinking Knight of Souls Betrayal. Well, that would have been good.
That card would be gas.
Yeah, that would be gas. And then, Pithing Needle can be a good card to play against the Inkmoth Nexus. Mm-hmm. And again, if Alex wants to be a little better at fighting the counter wars, he can bring in Flusterstorm. Pyroblast can fight the counter wars, but while it can kill the Blighted Agent, it doesn't have very many targets for the things that actually kill Alex outside of that.
Now, both of these players are very powerful magicians, especially Tom Ross.
Oh, yeah.
And while those of us might not ever able to be as good at Infect as Tom Ross is, we can look like him if we want to.
Oh, yeah.
With the official shirt of StarCityGames.com.
Oh, man. The male model Tom Ross comes out. He's just got that blue steel look. I don't know if you've seen Zoolander, but when Zoolander 3 comes out, I hope they cast Tom Ross in it.
Very high quality, 50% cotton, 50% polyester, screen printed in the USA. Go.StarCityGames.com/apparel. We do have men's and women's versions, as we see one of our other models there, Kenzie, who works at StarCityGames.com. But again, like I said,
Star City only hires the most handsome, and beautiful people.
Yeah, while we may not be able to be as good as Tom at Infect, at least you can look like him while you play it with that Star City shirt.
I think if you get one of those shirts, maybe a leather jacket, I think the Infect skills may just come naturally once you get to that point.
It might. So it looks like we got a mulligan that's going to happen for Tom. It appears that Alex has kept his opener. He is on the play, which is very important when you're on the Grixis Delver side of this matchup, is you want to have all of the cards that you possibly can. Tom doesn't have to cobble too much together to kill you, and you're going to be using all your resources to restrict Tom's resources throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about players is just how much they've done in the past. Both of these players have just a pretty rich history. Tom Ross in particular, he goes way back.
Yeah, Tom is a very, very powerful magician and has quite a bit of accolades with StarCityGames.com. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Tom's player profile.
Oh, sweet.
So we can see he's 32 from Roanoke. He has 9 open top 8s, 2 open wins, 3 invitational top 8s.
Yeah, absolutely
with
insane.
2 wins. That's a great prescentage. He used to do parkour. He does backflips. Plays Mortal Kombat X. Louisiana State champion 5 times. Tom is a very, very good Magic player. He's done a lot in his career on the SCG Tour. And I think he's finally going to keep his 6-card hand. So let's see if he can win this game.
Yeah, and you got a good look at those stats. One thing that's unique about it is you'll see a lot of players with a lot of top 8s. Tom, on the other hand, has a lot of wins. One thing that is particularly unique about Tom is good at beating the best of the best. He's just like a sniper.
So we're going to start off the game. Alex Bastecki is going to play a Volcanic Island and a Pithy Needle, naming Inkmoth Nexus, just like you had
Just how I drew it up.
Just how the boss had postulated in our sideboard tech. Tom Ross is going to start off going down to 18 with a Gataxian Probe, and Alex is going to reveal a hand of Dismember, Young Pyromancer, a Misty Rainforest, a Flooded Strand, and a Brainstorm. So he does have one proactive threat. He's got a way to generate some advantage. He has a way to interact with Tom with that Pithy Needle and a removal spell and Dismember. This is exactly what Alex needed. Yeah,
Alex has a really nice line of play where next turn it's probably going to be safe enough for him to tap out for this Young Pyromancer, and then once he untaps, he can just let the spells fly and let that Young Pyromancer generate an entire army.
So Tom is going to lead on a Misty Rainforest and pass. Alex looked like he picked up a copy of Wasteland for the turn, so he could even potentially have a line where he gets to play Young Pyromancer this turn, and then next turn he can Wasteland, cutting off some of Tom's mana, use a Brainstorm to find some action, maybe even a Dismember to kill a creature, pump out a bunch of elemental tokens, and put Tom on a clock.
Yeah, that would be the most ideal line of play that you could do, where not only are you attacking their mana, you're attacking their creatures while also building up an offense on your own side.
That's one of the reasons why Young Pyromancer has made such a splash in the Legacy format. It did a little bit in Modern, but it has been much bigger in Legacy than it had been in Standard. It saw a little bit of play in Standard, but there's just such a bevy of free spells and 1-mana spells in Legacy that we didn't quite have access to when it was in Standard. And Tom is going to use a Hydroblast out of his sideboard to counter that Young Pyromancer, and that has got a sting for Alex.
Yeah, that's a good move on Tom's part. On the one hand, he would prefer to use that Hydroblast as a way to protect his threats, but right now, if that Young Pyromancer sticks on the table, Tom is not going to have a whole lot of time to be able to develop his side of the board and mount an offense. Also, from seeing Alex's hand, Tom knows that as of last turn, that was the only threat that Alex had. So Tom is able to buy himself a whole lot of time to sort of sculpt the situation the way he wants it to be by taking out that Young Pyromancer.
So Tom just has a Dryad Arbor, and he's going to pass for his turn. Alex feels like it's time to cash in this Brainstorm, and it has the potential to be very good for him since he has just a lot of air in his hand. And Tom senses this and fights back with a Flusterstorm. I assume he's going to trigger the storm on it and put the additional copies on that Brainstorm. And Alex does not have an additional 3 mana to pay for that Flusterstorm. Wasteland's going to take out his Tropical Island, and Alex is just going to pass the turn back.
So one thing that can be important about when you're playing a combo deck, whether it's Infect or Sneak and Show, a lot of the times when you're actually trying to kill your opponent, your mana gets bottlenecked. Essentially, you need to cast the spells that are going to win you the game on that turn, in this case Tom's pump spells, but you also need mana to be able to protect them, and that's why these decks typically lean so heavily on Force of Will and Daze. But in this case, Tom is firing off some of his reactionary spells proactively to cut Alex off from drawing those disruptive spells. So essentially, the fight may come later, but Tom is able to spread out how he uses his mana when it comes to the cards that are played during that fight.
Now, Tom doesn't have any blue mana. He does just have a Pendelhaven. Gets in for one with Dryad Arbor, knocking out Bastecki down to 18. Alex, however, has found another copy of Brainstorm off the top of his deck, and this is going to change the course of the game for him. It will let him look at 3 new cards. He does have a fetch land in his hand that he can get rid of. It looks like he found another copy of Wasteland that he can use as a removal spell to get rid of that Dryad Arbor. And as long as he can deploy a threat, he might be able to take this game from Tom before Tom can get his feet back underneath himself.
Yeah. One thing that's a little interesting about Tom's side of the board right now is he has no blue mana. Both of his lands only tap for green. So it would have been interesting to see if Alex wants to fire off this Wasteland now, or if he wants to save it for when Tom finally does draw a blue land.
Now, Alex uses that Wasteland on the Pendelhaven instead of the Dryad Arbor, which ends up being a really good play on his part. Tom has a Vines of the Vastwood in his hand, and he would have been able to use that to save his Dryad Arbor from the Wasteland.
The other thing that's nice about leaving the Dryad Arbor on the board is Alex may be able to incidentally kill it with a Forked Bolt when he's really targeting something else.
So Tom is just going to go ahead and play a Noble Hierarch and pass the turn. Alex is able to flip that Delver of Secrets since he stacked to the top of his deck with the Brainstorm previously. Attack for 3, putting Tom at 14. He's going to deploy another copy of Delver of Secrets, and Tom is on a clock.
So it's pretty interesting the way that Alex is playing this. Alex originally fired off that Wasteland on the Pendelhaven, and a lot of the times you want to pick and choose whether or not you want to just kill all the infect creatures, or if you want to kill the things that support them. And Alex has a Lightning Bolt here, and he chose not to kill the Noble Hierarch. So it looks like he's kind of pivoting as this game goes along. First fighting the things that pump, and then now fighting the actual infect creatures.
So he is able to flip that Delver of Secrets for Alex by revealing a Dismember. Alex is going to pay 4 life, going down to 14 to cast the Dismember on the Blighted Agent, and Tom Ross is going to use his Vines of the Vastwood to try and give it hexproof. Now, Alex does have a Lightning Bolt, so he can try and kill it here in response, but Tom has a copy of Invigorate in his hand, which sets that Dryad Arbor is a forest. He can cast it for the alternate cost of giving Alex 4 life and save his Blighted Agent here, which is actually a threat. Alex can't block it. It can end the game fairly quickly because of that Noble Hierarch that's in play. And if Tom happens to draw something like Become Immense, the game could be over in 2 turns.
Yeah, even though that didn't work out super well for Alex, Alex did basically just trade 2 removal spells for 2 pump spells. Notably, Alex did that on his turn, where a lot of players run into trouble is when they face this infect deck and they try to use their removal spells inside of combat, because then Tom gets to save his creature, pump it up, and then deal a whole lot of extra damage. So I like, even though Alex lost that fight, I like his timing on it. Another good time to do something like that is post-combat on Tom's turn.
Yeah, you don't want to do it before combat and give them the effect from the pump spell. Now, Tom did find a copy of Brainstorm for his turn. It looks like there's a Berserk there, so if he's ever able to get a couple pumps on a creature, he could just end the game with a Berserk.
Yep. Berserk is one of the all-time great old school cards. That is the cards where you're just laying it all on the table. You're just like, I got this.
So Tom's just going to attack for 2 infect. He is at 8, and those Delvers are going to be able to knock him down to 2 if he decides to not block at all, and then he would just be dead to a Lightning Bolt or a Forked Bolt. This is going to be a big draw step for Alex if he wants to try and close this game out.
Yeah, either way, Tom usually isn't on any kind of defensive plan. He'll play a little bit of defense, but he'd much rather not. His deck is not equipped at doing so that well.
So Tom might block with an Inkmoth Nexus here. It looks like he's just going to Crop Rotation. This is going to shuffle his deck, which is the main reason he's doing it, as a way to get rid of those cards from the Brainstorm that he put back that he didn't like.
Pretty interesting line of play, though. This Crop Rotation is technically card disadvantage because Tom is paying his land and his crop rotation just to get this tropical island. But I suppose if he's essentially drawing dead, he just needs that shuffle effect.
Yeah, so if we got any pump spell here wins the game if Alex doesn't have anything. And there's a Ponder, so he gets another look. And there's an Invigorate.
Wow.
And another Berserk. So if Alex doesn't have any way to interact with this, he is just dead.
Tom Ross, ladies and gentlemen. What a baller.
There's the Invigorate, and then there's the Berserk.
Oh, man. I'm sure he's going to do a backflip off camera for the win.
Wow.
Yeah, that was so sick. Tom Ross, the leather jacket is just undefeated across all events.
I see him do this a lot, and
Yeah.
of all of the things that Tom is good at, which is, I can count him. I would need more than my hands and toes.
Yeah.
Playing to his outs.
Yeah.
He is very good at calculating what needs to happen, what do I need to draw, how do I need to make this happen, how can I win this game. I've never seen Tom play a game to not lose. Tom will play every game to try and win. And if he loses in the process, that happens sometimes. It's a percentage. But he's never going to play a game to not lose. He plays to win.
Absolutely. I really like the line of play that he laid out. Using the crop rotation on your own creature is just something that you very rarely want to do. I mean, like I was pointing out, it's card disadvantage, and he's losing one of his valuable cards, but he just wanted to ensure that it resolved.